Hello, and welcome to Accounting News, a series dedicated to providing valuable insights for accountants and CPAs navigating the complex world of buying and selling their practice. Today's topic is assessing the value of your practice, and we're honored to welcome an expert who brings 37 years' experience in the field of buying and selling accounting practices, and he is the author of an informative book, The 7 Secrets for Selling Your Practice. His name, Bruce Clark, founder and CEO of New Clients, Inc. Bruce, welcome to Accounting News.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate being here. Appreciate you asking me on.
It's our pleasure, Bruce. So let's go ahead and start off with a little history of how you got into the accounting field and how it led into buying and selling accounting practices.
Yeah, well, actually, I came in a rather unusual way. I started working for my father's accounting firm in the early 1970s as a salesperson, which was very unusual back then. You normally didn't hear the word sales and accounting mentioned in the same sentence. And I helped my father build one of the largest small business bookkeeping and tax practices in the state back then. I was director of marketing in his firm for 14 years. And around 1983, I think it was, I went out and started my own practice. I was building that using the same techniques we had developed at my father's firm. When I noticed something in the marketplace, and that is that prior to 1979, if you were a CPA in the United States, you weren't allowed to market your services. Well, my dad wasn't a CPA, I wasn't a CPA, so we weren't governed by those rules. So now, fast forward 1983, 84, the laws were changed, okay, and CPAs were allowed to market, and I noticed that we still didn't have any competition in the marketplace, and it dawned on me one day why. Although they were now allowed to market and go out and solicit businesses, they didn't know how to do it. So it was from that simple realization that I started to create the training programs that became known as New Clients Incorporated. At the end of around the same time frame, I decided to sell my practice because NCI was starting to take off, but we were getting success on that side of the business. And I sold my practice for 150% of gross annual billings. And if you know anything about valuations, that's at the upper echelons in terms of selling a practice. And we've been doing that pretty much ever since, growing and building practices all over the United States.
So with that said, Bruce, I'm sure with 37 years experience under your belt, you've pretty much seen it all, especially when it comes to the key factors involved evaluating the actual value of an accounting firm.
Yeah, well, I would hope after 37 years that you learned something. If you didn't, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. So yes, we've seen everything in terms of growing, managing, and selling firms. There's not too much we haven't been involved with and had to deal with and help overcome.
Excellent. So moving forward with practice valuations, it's rumored that the more clients you have, the more value you bring to the negotiating table. So with your experience, is this fact? And if not, what are the key factors to consider when evaluating an accounting firm?
Absolutely. Of course, the number of clients is important, but not as important as the type of clients, meaning what type of accounting firm do you have? Is it an audit and review firm, which is doing higher end, more technical work, which requires a higher cost structure in order to deliver that work back to the client? Or are you doing bookkeeping and tax work, which is a lower end type client, but the profit margins tend to be higher because you can hire non-technical staff to deliver that work? And then there are strictly tax practices that are doing only 1040 work or personal tax returns. Those practices tend to sell at the lower end of the multiples. Bookkeeping and tax practices are selling at the higher end of the multiples because they tend to be more profitable.
All right. So besides the number of clients a firm has, the value will also fluctuate depending on the type of service you provide. That totally makes sense. So with that known, Bruce, how important are intangible assets, such as brand reputation, client reviews on Google, Facebook listings, and alike, when evaluating an accounting firm?
Well, obviously, you don't want to have bad reviews on Google. That's a non-starter. But all those things play a role, your reputation in the market. And by the way, buyers will Google you, okay, to see, if there's any bad stuff out there. And if it's out there, it's going to come up. So just remember that. But again, I go back to my prior answer, and that is that the main drivers of valuations are profit margins. And we say profit margins anywhere from 30 to as high as 50%, with around 35 to 40% being, in the middle and the average. And that is typically that, and the type of clients, again, are the main drivers for valuations. And you'll see valuations anywhere between 75% of gross annual billings to 150% of gross annual billings. The other thing that's changed in the past 3 years is that with private equity monies coming into the marketplace and buying up firms, they look more in terms of valuation as a multiple of EBITDA, which is earnings before taxes, interest, and depreciation. Again, profit margins, okay? And they will value a firm anywhere between 3 to 5 times EBITDA, paying 70 to 80% cash at closing, which is outstanding.
So, bottom line, it seems to me there's a lot of variables to consider, but profit margin is paramount when valuing a practice. Got it. With that insight known, Bruce, is there anything else to consider? And what should a seller avoid when attempting to sell their practice?
Well, one of the first things you don't want to do is represent yourself. The old adage about attorneys having a fool for themselves as a client holds true. So you want to seek professional help. There are so many factors to doing this. Everything from locating a buyer first, pre-qualifying that buyer financially to make sure that if they decide they want to buy your firm, they have the financial wherewithal to do so. All the paperwork, letter of intent. We provide the documents for an LOI, the asset purchase agreement, which is the actual agreement used to construct the agreement of sale, which, by the way, will help keep legal fees down to a minimum. So you really want to seek professional help. And you remove the emotional component of you representing yourself.
So basically, relying on an expert to help things go smooth as planned certainly goes a long way, which I'm sure most sellers would appreciate. So let's talk time frame. Can you give us the best and worst case scenario, how long it usually takes to sell a practice?
Well, typical time frame, depending on the time of year that you list, the best time to list, by the way, is right after tax season. But I would say anywhere between 90 and 120 days from start to finish. The other factor is financing involved. If that's the case, you're probably looking at the upper end of that time frame. And the other aspect, how cooperative are the seller and the buyer in terms of getting me the information I need, or the bank, if that's the case, the information they need to make a lending decision will impact how long it takes to get it done.
So the upshot is the more cooperative the buyer and the seller are when it comes to doing their due diligence, the more expedient the whole process will take from start to finish. So for those viewers that are in the throes of selling their practice, what immediate advice would you give them, Bruce?
Well, the first thing I would recommend would be to go to my website at newclientsinc.com, and on the homepage there's a pop-up for my free ebook, The 7 Secrets to Selling Your Practice Successfully on Your Terms, and download the book. You'll get a lot of good information from that. I've heard good comments from clients who have read that. And the other aspect I would suggest is call me. My cell is 856-304-1035. Be more than happy to answer any questions you may have and provide as much information as I can to help you make a good decision as to whether now's the right time for you to enter into this process.
Well, Bruce, I have to say it doesn't get any better than that for those who want a free evaluation of your practice. And we certainly want to thank you for your expert insight today, and congratulations with all your success with New Clients Inc.
Thanks, Brett. My pleasure being with you.
And for those viewers who want a free copy of the 7 Secrets for Selling Your Practice, be sure and go to newclientsinc.com or simply scan the code on the screen where you can get your free copy today. Well, that pretty much wraps up another segment of our accounting news series, wishing all accounting professionals the best in selling their practice. My name is Brett Duncan. Thanks for joining us.